I don't understand everything that is on the assessments. Help.
So once you have the diagnosis and you have begun to get a program together for your child, it becomes just a world of foreign language. You know, there's so many acronyms used in dealing with children with autism, and you're sitting in a meeting and you have a psychologist there and a speech therapist and whoever else has been invited to join, and they're throwing out all these words, and you're almost afraid to open your own mouth because you don't understand what they're talking about with IEPs and OT and sensory integration and vestibular deficiencies and proprioceptive needs, and you just are overwhelmed. And what you have to remember is that these terms are just a way to formulate a plan. You really don't have to be a psychologist, you don't have to be a behavioral specialist in order to be the best asset your child has. One of the things that I found useful is to give myself a Reader's Digest education. And I looked up all these terminologies that I had seen on reports and asked questions if I needed to, and figured out what they really meant and how that applied to my child. You know, do they have these things or do they not have these things? Do they need these things or does it not apply to them? Because when you're going into a meeting, they throw out all the terms and it doesn't always necessarily apply to your child. They're more or less going over the data that they've collected in an assessment. And again, this can be so overwhelming. So don't feel like you're, inferior. Don't feel like you're, uneducated. You are the absolute best advocate for your child, bar none. And never forget that. You don't have to sit back there quietly. Feel free to ask questions. Feel free to intervene at any time to agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. One of the things I found really useful before going into a meeting or before sitting down with a therapist at all was to write up a list of what was important to me, what we need to work on for my son, to get him to be able to just live in our world better, and so that we could communicate with him. And that helped a lot. And I wrote my own goals. Sometimes you see the goals written by psychologists or speech therapists, and they have benchmarks in them and all these different terminologies, and you know what it means, but you're really not sure how to get there. And what I always do is I write where I want my child to be in the next year, and then work backwards. And then start today, and start in baby steps. One of the things that you have to remember is to do things in sequence. You can't expect your child to all of a sudden sit down at the dinner table for the next 25 minutes and eat their meal calmly when they've never even sat at the table with the family before, because they just want to grab a piece off the plate and run around in circles around the table. You can't expect them all of a sudden, just because you're going to give them a reward at the end of the meal, that they're going to get it. You have to do it in little baby steps. Set a timer if you have to. 30 seconds. Take 30 seconds up to a minute. Take a minute up to 2 minutes, to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes. It might take you 3 months to get to a full meal, but it doesn't matter. You've started, and you have to do things a little at a time. Our kids don't understand the concept of finishing the whole project at once. It's very important to give them little congratulations, little attaboys, little rewards, tokens, if you will, at the slightest bit of improvement. And you have to do this immediately so they understand.